Thank you. Thank you. Andy, we're a team. So tonight I want to talk to you about the courage to grapple. And as a therapist, as Andy mentioned, as a therapist for 20 years and working with hundreds of people, I found that grappling is the word. It's the word that seems to get to the heart of what makes therapy work. It gets to the heart, in a way, if you will, of what makes life work. And so, as I talk about this, first I want to define it. Grappling is engaging in a close struggle without weapons. That second piece perhaps is as critical as the first piece, but you might think that there's something to do with a wrestling match or an MMA fight, but I'm not talking about physical grappling. Really, the kind of grappling I'm talking about happens in your heart and in your head and in your relationships. Grappling is having the hard conversation with your spouse, even when your voice gets a little shaky, and even when you know it'd be a hell of a lot easier to talk about something else. Grappling is having the courage to own your own demons and not let them leak all over those around you. Grappling is going towards awkwardness, towards struggle, instead of away from it. But perhaps surprisingly, there's another way to grapple, and that is to live into the possibility of how good life can really be, especially when it's scary and vulnerable as hell to do so. So, as Andy said, I've been a therapist, I've been a counselor, and what I know about grappling is that it's really about the experience of saddling up close to something and then hanging on until some deeper truth or clarity emerges. It's not an easy ride, but it is a ride that is well worth it. I know that because of the 20 years of being a therapist, and then at the Hoffman Institute, and then as a podcast host on Courageous Conversations. And I want to say this, I am far from perfect. In fact, it's the therapists who are always the kooky ones, isn't it? You know what I'm saying? What is it about that? Well, to prove that point, I'll tell the following story. So, my kids and my wife and I are heading up to the mountains for a hike. My wife is next to me. My then 6-year-old daughter is in the back, Mackenzie, and my 8-year-old son. This is many years ago. And we're headed up to the mountains. Halfway there, my daughter decides she doesn't want to go for a hike. She doesn't like hiking. Her knee hurts. Her knee is injured. And I'm trying to talk about the values of being outdoors, the benefits of exercise, and she's having none of it. The whining. I mean, all of a sudden, I'm in the debate with a 6-year-old girl, and I think I'm like losing. And sure enough, it starts to escalate, and I can't grapple. Like, I'm losing it. I'm not doing well with my feelings. And at one point, she says, "Dad, I need a knee brace," and I just say, "Honk," and I lay on the horn. And she says, "Wait, Dad, that's not fair. Honk. Wait a minute, Dad, honk." And in the ensuing silence, I'm admiring my conversational superiority. I'm back in the winning column in this debate, and I see someone staring at me. And I look over, and my wife is just shaking her head. And I'm like, "What?" And she says, "You need therapy." And you know what? She was right. She was right. Honking is the opposite of grappling. Honking is blaming. Honking is using weapons. And in that moment, this is the critical piece, and the second piece is without weapons. And my job when I work with people is to help take the weapon out of their hand and invite kindness and compassion and gentleness. Because what we know is that that kind of self-criticism We live in a blame world. It doesn't work. Kristen Neff researches this stuff, and here's what she said. Self-compassion is better, works better, more effective. It creates resiliency. We take feedback better, and it's better than self-criticism. And my job is to help people be kind to themselves and be kind to others. But how do we do this? What does that look like? I mean, what does it even mean to grapple? I want to tell you a story. So, there's a woman named Ursula Burns, and in the 1990s, she's a mid-level engineer at Xerox. And she's in a room where there's a company-wide meeting, and the CEO is up front, and he's talking about corporate values, he's talking about yearly projections, things like that. And something he's saying doesn't sit right with Ursula. So she grapples with the feeling, like, what is this feeling? And once she gets that clear, she grapples with the thought, like, why do I feel the way I feel? What is this feeling and why do I feel it? Now she grapples with action. What can I do? Should I write a letter? Should I meet with him after? And as she's doing that, she decides the career suicide that might happen if I stand up is worth it. And so she stands up, interrupts the CEO, and now she's grappling publicly with him. And in that grapple, in front of the whole company, he hears a perspective that he hasn't heard before. So he invites her for a meeting afterwards with this bold employee. Well, turns out this bold employee, Ursula Burns, would go on to become the first female African-American CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Yeah. Ursula Burns. If that ain't some grappling, I don't know what is. And so she's embodying it. But you know, the amazing thing is that it was her self-awareness that she got from the grappling that allowed her to know what she thinks, what she feels, and act from that place. And Harvard Business Review comes out with this article in January. They say that self-awareness is better than an MBA. So let's all go to therapy. Don't go to get an MBA. So that's what the research shows. It's worth it. It's worth it. But here's the real thing, is that we were born to grapple. It's innate in us. Kids, perhaps more than anybody, get grappling. And if you just look at this, a tear, but also a smile. And what about this? How many times do you think that little one fell down before the walking came and that beautiful smile on her face? And what about this? If that ain't a grappler, holy cow. He's ready for life. And these two right here, Mackenzie on the left, who's now 10, and Campbell on the right, who's 12. And if my job is anything, it's to help them grapple. It's to help them grapple. Because it's innate in them, and that's what I want for them. But I want to return to the car incident, humbly acknowledge that that wasn't the first time that I had lost it. But I'll tell you this, it motivated me to grapple with my stuff, with my boorish behavior. Because I so wanted to be less the guy instigating stress in my family, and I wanted more to be the guy co-creating love and joy and connection. And for that was worth grappling for. That was worth grappling for. So, engaging in a close struggle without weapons, right here. For the sake of what? For the sake of what? What do you want less of in your life? And what do you want more of in your life? And for the sake of what are you willing to grapple? For the sake of what are you willing to grapple? Because it's innate in us. And as we get older, we just have to remember that that grappling lives inside of us. And so I wish for you a lifetime of grappling. In fact, I'll give you a ticket to Grapple. And the great thing about these, they're free, and you can use them over and over and over again. So, here's to a lifetime of grappling, and just one request: go easy on the honking. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.